Every now and then you get a chance to chop it up with Loren from BTC Conference. How you doing, Loren?
Hey Chris, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got a chance to meet. You've been doing some amazing shit. Talk a little bit about some of the things you've been doing in the last year and a half. I think the last year and a half for you, and I'm just making an assumption, I could be wrong, have been probably some of the busiest, most productive time of your life in the space.
It really has. It really has. The Bitcoin space, as you know, moves very, very fast. It's an emerging technology, emerging asset. We've gone from Bitcoin being worth basically nothing 16 years ago to now being worth over $2.3 trillion in market cap today. Just incredible growth, right? And I think we've really seen an acceleration over the last 18 months with institutional adoption, mainstream adoption, regulatory clarity, political clarity, all of that has really, really come to the forefront. And so, really, since our conference in Nashville back in 2024, there's just been a lot of
Great
momentum.
conference, by the way. And by the way,
Oh, thank you.
I absolutely love Nashville. Like, I'm in Vegas, and you did a great job in May here in Vegas, and Vegas is always good for a conference. But Nashville was amazing. And by the way, the food was amazing in Nashville. There were some places there that were amazing.
It is. You can't eat it every day, but to go there and have a hot chicken or just good southern cooked food is it's great. And yeah, Nashville is a very unique experience just having it in that town. And Nashville itself is very open to creativity, freedom forward, which is a lot of the ethos that Bitcoin has. Yeah, great conference in Nashville. I think we had about 22,000 people. We had about 35,000 attendees in Vegas back in May, and we're hoping to have 50,000 attendees in Vegas next year in the beginning of April of 2026. So, for all your viewers and listeners, we'd love to have you at the conference. We think it's going to be a big one.
Now, you know my birthday's April 26th, right? I mean, I'm not expecting any cake or something, but just putting it out there.
Well, maybe we'll get something done. We can get you an orange cake. How's that?
Orange cake, one of those orange Gemini Tesla trucks that the boys had there at the last conference.
Right, right,
I
right.
I got to give Gemini credit. They've done some amazing things with their credit card, and now Coinbase is coming out with their credit card where it gives you 4% in Bitcoin rewards. Think about where Bitcoin has come, where now we've got companies issuing credit cards with American Express, and I don't know who backs Gemini. I think it's MasterCard, right?
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so. Yeah.
That really is the kind of tools that makes Bitcoin mainstream. Talk a little bit about what you and even David Bailey have done to really bring about the mainstream acceptance and understanding of Bitcoin, because that was the greatest challenge for years. I would explain Bitcoin to friends 10, 12 years ago, and they thought it was like a video game token or something, which, by the
Yep.
way, I'll tell you my story a little bit. I got into Bitcoin in 2012 because a friend of mine in Israel played World of Warcraft, online game. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, like way back in the day, Bitcoin was adopted partly because I think Brock Pierce had something to do with that. He was a big World of Warcraft gold seller. Do you know what gold is, World of Warcraft gold?
I played back in high school, which is predating a long time ago, but yes, I'm familiar with WoW.
Well, my buddy, he needed me to buy a Bitcoin with my PayPal account and my Venmo account because he didn't have one. Back then, you could buy Bitcoin with Venmo. I don't know if you remember; it was crazy. And then ship the Bitcoin to his wallet address, and the wallet address was a QT wallet. I don't know if you remember QT. It was very rudimentary, very rough. It was hard to use, hard to understand. And I literally every day would ship him some Bitcoin so he could buy more shields and stuff that he needed for the game. And it was amazing because he stopped driving me nuts for it. But I had like $200-300 worth of Bitcoin in this QT wallet, and I just figured he'd ask for it one day so he could buy more shields and whatever he needed. About a year passed by, and I upgraded computers. And it was about maybe a year and a half. I'm walking by I remember like it was yesterday. I'm walking by my television, literally walking right by it, and CNBC was on just for background noise. And all of a sudden, the lady goes, and today, in little known cryptocurrency, Bitcoin hits $163 a coin. And I literally said, what the fuck? Because I knew I had a ton of Bitcoin in that wallet. And I stopped to pay attention. And all of a sudden she stops talking. I'm like, lady, what the fuck? I need more info. So, I go find this old laptop that I had, which I did not get rid of. Shout out to the guy that threw, whose wife threw his hard drive into the
It's huge.
junkster.
Huge. Yep.
And I run it up again, and I go and I got these Bitcoin. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at the value of it, and I'm like, this can't be. There's no fucking way this can be. So now I'm trying to liquidate Bitcoin for US dollars just to prove to myself that I could actually do that. And I don't know if you remember, but through Mt. Gox, you could do 5,000 through Venmo. That was the max you could at any time.
Hmm.
So I did 5,000 just to see if I could get it. And sure as shit, it came through to my Venmo. I was like,
Wow.
that was the
Wow.
epiphany for me. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, this shit is real. And then I tried like a couple more 5,000s and I was like, holy mother of God. So I didn't really get into Bitcoin right away until that moment because maybe it was the fact that it was on CNBC, maybe the fact that I was able to turn it into US dollars. I needed that moment, that epiphany where I was like, okay, this is real. This is not a video game token. And
Yep.
that for me was like the big, let me pull up the hood and see what's going on. And I started realizing there were a lot of really cool benefits to Bitcoin, even back then. Like Bitcoin's come a long way since then, like a lot of improvements, like a lot of features around it, tools around it that have made Bitcoin super easy now to use. Like it's crazy good right now. And I think a lot of people are like that even today, is they haven't had that epiphany where they realize Bitcoin is the people's money. Bitcoin is the real deal. Bitcoin is absolutely positively the hardest money you're ever going to have. And it's the most honest money too. And when you buy Bitcoin, I think in many ways for me, my mindset now is I don't even like the US dollar. I'm betting on politicians debasing my own currency because that's their nature. It's like the old story about the scorpion and the frog. A scorpion jumps on the frog's back and stings him again. And the frog looks at him and he goes, hey, why'd you do that? We're both going to drown in the lake now. And the scorpion said, I can't help it. It's my nature. And you look at politicians, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they are. They constantly debase the US dollar because they're economically destroying our currency. And for what reasons? Who knows? Money laundering, spending money on frivolous programs, money that we don't have, you name it. I mean, I think we're at $38 trillion right now in deficit. You
Hmm.
can't expect the US dollar to thrive with that kind of a overdraft on your checking account. If it, as a human being, we had a checking account, we overdrafted it by $38 trillion, I am pretty sure our bank would call us up and say, hey, buddy, you need overdraft protection. Let me give you some Bitcoin.
Yep. I mean, it's all points you hit on are exactly why we are very, very excited about where Bitcoin's going. Governments, not just in the US, around the world, are going to continue to debase their currencies. It's the only way out, right? Austerity is not politically tenable. You can't save your way out of debt.
No.
You can't cut people's entitlements. People will revolt. Um, the only way to do is to inflate your way out, and you debase the currency and you print more of it. And owning scarce assets is the only way to protect and preserve your purchasing power, which Bitcoin, we think, is the biggest, the truest representation of that, right? It's the only asset today that has absolute scarcity. Everything
Yeah,
else can be
beyond,
built,
yeah, beyond absolute. Like
printed,
it's literally. Here's the thing: everyone says 21 million. I actually think it's like 15 million when it's all said and done.
right? No, I mean, I think there's studies out there that there's 5 to 6 million Bitcoin that are lost just from people in the early days messing around with it, not thinking it was going to be worth anything on old hard drives, right? That got lost or blew up. And
Shout out to
so,
the hard drive stuck in the dumpster.
right, yeah, right. RIP unfortunately to that, but no, I mean, it truly is. And I think to your point earlier about when you were transacting on Mount Gox, once people go through their own Bitcoin transaction and do it themselves and realize that they just moved value from their wallet to somebody else's wallet or another one of their wallets, peer to peer, with no centralized intermediary facilitating that, it truly does feel like magic. Like I just
Well,
sent this in a decentralized, censorship resistant way, and nobody could have stopped that.
Well, I've done some transactions where it was a significant amount of money that moved in Bitcoin. And even every time, like I don't know if it's just me or what, but whenever like, I've done seven-figure transactions, and even that like And it's usually only, and the funny thing is with Lightning now, it's even better. Like it's so great. Lightning is phenomenal. Shout out to all the developers that brought Lightning around. But when you send Bitcoin, I don't care if it's like $100 or $6.5 million. There's that moment in time, even to this day, where I keep thinking to myself, did I get the right numbers? Did I put the right account in? Like one thing about Bitcoin is it forces you to be very um, I don't know what's the word. You have to take your time. Do not rush. Do not miss a number. Do not mess up the wallet address you're sending to or shipping from. And at the end of the day, even to this day, whenever I send large amounts of Bitcoin, that moment in time where until it hits, I'm like, oh God, thank God, thank God.
I still have that same anxiety, but you do have to take ownership. You have to take accountability. That's the
Yep.
ethos of Bitcoin as well, right? There's no
Well, I
one
always
coming.
tell people send like $1. Make sure you send $1 first and then send whatever you're going to send.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
What
No, I'm
was your
just
aha moment, by the way? I gave you my story. What was your aha moment for Bitcoin?
so my prior role, I used to work for a traditional investment consulting firm out in the West Coast, and we served endowments, foundations, families, large pools of institutional capital. And so we covered all of the asset classes from equities to fixed income to private equity, other types of hedge funds, real estate. And so I sat on the manager diligence side. So my job at the time was to underwrite hedge funds and private credit, fixed income type strategies for our clients to invest in effectively. So like a financial advisor. And buddies and I, colleagues and I on the research side, we started watching Bitcoin in 2015, 2016, kind of go through that price discovery moment.
I think that was like that 900 to $1,200 swing, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember, when it went from like 1,200 down to 150 one day, or what? Like not one
Right.
day, but over the course of a couple of days. And it's
Yep.
so funny too because I don't mean to interrupt you, but whenever Bitcoin goes down, I get more people calling me, more friends that I haven't heard from in a long time, just to say, "Oh, you okay? You okay, buddy? That Bitcoin stuff, we knew it was garbage." I'm like, is that the same for you? Like, whenever Bitcoin goes down, do you get those? Oh man, you had to know it was garbage, right?
I've received the message on both sides when we're going through this really big bull market and the price is really going. People are saying, "Hey, tell me a little bit more about this Bitcoin thing," and then vice versa to your point, when it's going through its bear market and it's down. I've incurred a 70% drawdown and have felt that pain personally. And people are love to kind of dance and say, "Hey, I told you so," and
Yeah, exactly.
you just have to be very zen about it and say, look, I know what I own. I know what this asset is. I know where it's going long term. I don't really care about the short term volatility or noise. And I'm here to be in the space for the long run. So a lot of it's just blocking out that noise and just really trying to educate people, right? I think there's a lot of misnomers out there still about Bitcoin. And I think everybody, Michael Saylor puts this best, the chairman of MicroStrategy. They own 640,000 Bitcoin on their corporate balance sheet, the largest corporate owner in the world of Bitcoin.
I
He's
think it's more
everyone
than six hundred
starts
thousand now. I think he's like cruising. His goal is. I
640,000.
heard him talk the other day, and his goal is to get like 10% of the total supply. And if anyone's going to get it, it's that guy. And I'll tell you why. He's figured out a way to get free money, free US dollars to buy Bitcoin. Like the guy is a market genius.
He is. He's a very he's very eloquent in how he talks about Bitcoin and how he conceptualizes it, and he gives it in a very clear way. But he was saying that everyone initially views Bitcoin is a skeptic, right? When you first hear about Bitcoin, you say, okay, this is either too good to be true, it's a scam, it's a fraud, it sounds scammy. Bitcoin, what is this Bitcoin thing? It's not real. I can't touch it like a gold bar or a property. It's all out there in the ether, the internet. But once you actually start doing the work on what it is and how it's secured by real world energy, by decentralized nodes all around the world, the fact it's had basically zero downtime in its 16-year history and remains the most decentralized, largest crypto asset over that decade and a half, right? If you look at the top 10 cryptos, I mean, they always fluctuate, 2 through 10 have always fluctuated over these different cycles. Bitcoin has remained king, right? It's number one. It's number one for a reason. It's a store of value digital asset that can't be debased, that you can move in a decentralized, censorship resistant way. And that has a ton of value for people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Let me ask you a question about Michael Saylor. How important has Michael Saylor been to the growth of Bitcoin? I want to say he's been doing micro strategy. I think it's strategy now. I don't even think it's micro strategy.
Mhm.
He's been doing that strategy to acquire Bitcoin for a good solid 5 years now. Maybe it's been three. I don't know. It just seems like it's been five. How important has he been to Bitcoin's adoption on Main Street and Wall Street?
It's been huge, huge. I mean, to have that amount of conviction in the asset, to go all in on the asset. I mean, he was already a billionaire before he got into Bitcoin. He didn't need it. And it's funny, if you look back at one of his initial tweets about Bitcoin, he basically dispelled it. He's like, I don't think this is worth anything. I think it's going to go away. And so that's why he goes back to saying, hey, I think Bitcoin, yeah, everyone starts out as Bitcoin skeptic and they do the work and realize what it truly is. But no, he's been very, very huge for the industry. I mean, he started acquiring Bitcoin on the strategy balance sheet right after COVID in 2020. And basically, he looked at his balance sheet, he looked at his company, and said, "We're a zombie company. We make okay revenue, we make okay profits. We're never going to compete with Microsoft or any of these other software platforms. We're never going to get to that size. We're kind of just middling along, and either we wrap it up and go away and drink Mai Tais on the beach, or we go all in on something we really believe in and start something new." And that's the path that he chose, was to really acquire Bitcoin, leveraging his corporate balance sheet and becoming a Bitcoin treasury company. And so back when he first started, his initial purchase, I think, was $250 million worth of Bitcoin. And
That
today,
was just the warm up. He was just getting warmed up.
just the warm up. It
That was
wasn't
the
even,
that was
it
him
was just like the
stretching a
first
little bit.
stretch, right? It like wasn't even a warm up.
Exactly.
It was just like I just started to stretch my arm to get ready.
Exactly. Well, the funny
He,
thing is, when you look back and you say, okay, he started with a $250 million purchase, and then you see like what he's done since, any given day, he makes these announcements of how he's acquired so much Bitcoin. It's like it's the most impressive thing from a corporate financing standpoint, a Wall Street corporate financing standpoint. It's almost you almost got to say it's genius.
right. Well, I was going to say, so I think his Bitcoin today is worth about $80 billion.
Just 80 bill. Just 80 bill.
But think about that. In 5 years, going from 250 million to 80 billion. That's insane.
That's
Right?
I
It's an
mean
it's
everything you look at lately is insane. Like it's crazy like what we've seen bit like today. I don't know what Bitcoin's at today. Let's say 115,000. I
Mhm.
mean, just think like I want to say 4 years ago during the scamdemic. It wasn't COVID, it was the scamdemic. Um we had Bitcoin as low as I want to say $3,000 it dropped at one point, like in March or something. That wasn't too long ago. And
Right.
you think to
Right.
yourself, like, this is unbelievable.
It is, and to that point, right? Everyone always thinks they're late to the game, right? Oh, I missed the trade, I missed that. I was talking to somebody at the Nashville conference, a year and a half ago, at a side event, and he said, "Look, everybody in this room doesn't realize it, but they're going to be Bitcoin OGs 10 years from now, right? Bitcoin, I think at the time was trading at around 50,000, maybe 40, 50,000 back then, and he's like, look, like we're still so incredibly early to this. We're just getting started."
Well, it's
And
funny.
now seeing institutional capital come in.
It's funny. A lot of people always say, "Well, I'm too late. I'm too late." And then some people say, "Well, we're all early. We're all early." It doesn't matter if you're late or early. You're buying Bitcoin not for any other reason, but because it's the best store of value. It is the best, hardest currency out there. It's significantly better than the US dollar. And you look at what's happening in other countries that have debased their own currency, Greece and Argentina. People of Greece, they on a weekly basis, they're limited to taking $60 out of the ATM a week. And I thought to myself, Bitcoin doesn't limit you at anything. It's your control. You're in control of your wallet. You're the bank, and that to me, having that freedom of your own money, that freedom of your own wealth, that freedom of an asset, that's invaluable. Like you can't put a value on that.
100%. 100%. It's really one of a kind. And yeah, and to your point, I mean, there's all these developing nations, third world countries where if you need to get out of Dodge or you need to leave, or if you need to transact with somebody outside, you can do it through Bitcoin. And the great thing about a Bitcoin wallet is you have your seed phrases, right? All you have to do is memorize your 12 word seed phrase in sequential order, and you can literally store the Bitcoin value in your head. You can store value in your head. I mean, you got to memorize the words,
Yeah,
but
I'll be honest with you. I got to write that shit down. I got so many wallets floating around. I keep thinking to myself, all right. One time, a friend of mine forgot his seed phrase, and he knew it was something, or he no, this was back when he could actually have a password for the Bitcoin wallet. The guy Peter Smith's wallet, and he was able to choose his own password. And it took him, along with a couple of other guys, to help him out to recover 7 out of 9 Bitcoin that he had in a wallet that he forgot the
mm,
password to. Luckily, they figured it out and they earned their 2 Bitcoin, and he got his 7, which is a win for him a couple of years
and
ago. But
yep,
I tell people, listen, take your time and go slow.
yep.
Guard those passwords or those keys like with your life. Make sure you're organized. I mean, the biggest thing you have to do is be organized with information. You can't treat this flippantly.
Right.
You can't be aloof when it comes to your Bitcoin wallet. That's the one thing Bitcoin forces you to do is be very mature.
It does, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's one Bitcoin OG who says driving cars initially is hard, having kids is hard, raising a family is hard. You can store your Bitcoin just fine, right? Just treat it as the asset that you should treat it as something that's very important. It's going to be worth a lot more in the future than it is now. So if you treat it with respect, treat it with focus like you would with anything else that's meaningful in your life, it's all doable.
Yep. We talked a little bit about how important Michael Saylor was for Bitcoin in the last 5 years. Let's talk about how important Donald J. Trump has been for Bitcoin.
I mean, he's really brought it mainstream, I think. He spoke at our conference back in 2024 and supported the Bitcoin ecosystem. David Bailey was one of the consortium of individuals who's our CEO for Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin Inc., and is a partner at UTXO, the hedge fund that I work with. To really get him to the conference and talk about how Bitcoin can be a strategic asset for the US government and for the US citizens, really, not the government, for the citizens. And
How
so
important was that talk he gave, not only to the industry, but to his campaign and to America?
I mean, it just shows the progression of where Bitcoin is going, right? I think if you go back 3 years from that conference or 2 years from the conference, we had the president of El Salvador, Bukele, speak at our
Bukele. Oh, I love that guy. That
fantastic,
guy's
right? Fantastic. And he's done a great job cleaning up that country and making it safe, and tourism is back and it's thriving. Um,
can't you
but he
get
was
like
one of the first.
can't you get a passport to El Salvador if you like buy a $400,000 house out there now?
I think I don't know the exact situation, but yes, I think if you buy real estate, it's a quick path to citizenship there.
Yeah, he's one of
Yep.
the smartest presidents I've seen come along on a global basis in my lifetime.
But he was really the first person who came to the Bitcoin conference and said we're going to make Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador, have a Bitcoin strategic reserve for our country, and really reinvest for our citizens. And so that was, I think, 2022, I believe. And then we had RFK speak the next year when he
Yep.
was still a presidential candidate, saying he was going to be the Bitcoin president and support Bitcoin and the digital assets industry, which is fantastic. And then the following year was President Trump who said we're going to do the same thing. And so it just shows the progression of a smaller country, developing country that's doing a great job and going from another presidential candidate to the presidential to now the president supporting the industry. And so I think it's big just in terms of mainstream adoption and showing that this is a legitimate asset class to hold and invest in. And also shows the strategic importance of having Bitcoin, right? I think there are other countries that can potentially use Bitcoin for national security type reasons, and why shouldn't the US? And so, no, I mean, it was huge in terms of just getting that mainstream adoption and that view of Bitcoin out to the masses.
Yeah. Think about this for a second too. We're looking at Bitcoin in America right now, going through probably its greatest growth in the last year and a half. But we've got 3 more years with Trump in charge and his administration in charge. And people like Trump and JD Vance and David Sachs, they have 3 years to continue to build out Bitcoin inside of America, build out all the rules, regulations, make it more, more interesting. And you look at the Trump family, they're doing things with Bitcoin beyond the White House. They're doing things with, I mean, I got a breakfast coming up where Eric Trump is speaking in Fort Lauderdale next week. And you look at what Eric's been doing, it's been unbelievable. It's not just President Trump saying, hey, we're going to embrace Bitcoin. His family is all in on Bitcoin.
They are. They are. They see where this technology is going and where this asset is going and the value it represents. And that's the beauty about Bitcoin, right? You could have the president's sons, who have been great in terms of building out the ecosystem and companies based on Bitcoin, owning it. And you could have someone who has $5 worth of Bitcoin, right, in their wallet, and they each have equal rights to the Bitcoin protocol, right? Bitcoin protocol doesn't care. And that's the beauty of it is it spans kind of everybody. But no, I think to your point, it shows that this is still, even at a $2 trillion asset, a very new emerging technology. And I think the smart money is coming in and realizing that this protocol and this network is here to stay. And it's really about building it the right way. I think the big thing that the industry wanted from this administration was just clarity on the rules and regulations. Like how should we act? How can we act? We want to do things appropriately. We want to be in compliance, and that just hasn't happened in the past. And so just having clarity from a regulatory standpoint is a big deal, and it institutionalizes what this industry is too.
All right, let's talk about something else. A good friend of mine who I've known for over 15 years, even before he got into Bitcoin, CZ, recently got a pardon from Trump. And I think even without that pardon, the things that CZ's done for the industry are selfless. He's one of the highest character individuals in the world, and especially in Bitcoin. I've seen him take a hack to his platform, Binance, early on for 40 million and literally pull money out of the company's pocket and make sure that everyone was whole. He's done all the right things. Talk a little bit about what CZ has meant to the Bitcoin space and talk a little bit about his pardon that he just got from Trump.
Sure. No, I mean he's obviously a big OG, built out one of the largest platforms across crypto Bitcoin, right? There is. And actually he was at our conference in Hong Kong last month, and our CIO Tyler Evans interviewed him basically on stage, on the main stage, and just talked about the growth of Bitcoin and where it's going. And obviously he's very bullish and very constructive on everything. And I think the pardon, it makes sense, right? If you look at what it was for AML violations, which obviously are a big deal. Like they should be considered. Yes, fines should be incurred, all of that. But
Well,
you could argue,
by the way, just so we're clear, and I want everyone to know this, he wasn't convicted for money laundering purposes. Everyone keeps talking about the word money laundering, had nothing to do with that. It was for lack of setting up protocols to
right?
keep certain accounts out. Now, just so we're clear, just so we're very clear, that kind of stuff has happened all the time, and no bank president or no bank individual has gone to jail ever. He was literally put in jail and prosecuted and forced to give up $4 billion for political reasons. It was a political witch hunt.
Right. Exactly. I was going to say and that's why the pardon, in my opinion, is what was well deserved, is because there was likely political persecution attached to this, and you see it all the time with banks, and no one goes to jail over that. So yes, it just shows kind of where the industry was 4 years ago, where it's at today. And ultimately, Bitcoin at the end of the day should be bipartisan, right? This is for everybody. It's for everybody. And
You would think it's
it's just common
bipartisan, but it's
sense.
not. It
I know.
literally is a dividing line between two parties.
And it shouldn't be, but at the end of the day, the party that's supporting it, that's promoting the industry, doing things the right way in terms of building it out, I mean that's at the end of the day, it's all about freedom, self-sovereignty, and giving people those rights. And we're gonna support the people that believe in those tenets, those
All right,
ethos.
let's talk about something fun. You're coming to Vegas in April. You're expecting 50,000 people, which would be by far and away the biggest conference in Bitcoin's history. Talk about some of the things you're going to do in April that are probably going to be exciting for people to come and want to see, be a part of, more importantly. First of all, where are you guys going to have it? Same place again?
Same place, so we'll have it at the Venetian Expo, which was fantastic. We really enjoyed working with those folks last year, or back in May, and yeah, exactly. Trying to get 50,000 people. We're gonna have this is always a moving target, but leaders across Bitcoin, traditional finance, the political spectrum. Really trying to get the shakers and movers of all these different industries to be there at the Bitcoin conference, and we hope it is the biggest yet. I think we're trending in that direction. We think Bitcoin is going to be continuing to do very well into Q1 and Q2, is our opinion. And as long as we're in this structural bull market and believe where Bitcoin's going, I think there's just going to continue to be more and more interested people wanting to attend. And so Vegas last year was super fun, and obviously you have everything else going around in that city of things to do and easy access for people to fly in from everywhere around the world. And so no, we're excited to do it again there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great event. This wasn't your first event in Vegas, anyhow. You guys have been in Vegas multiple times, correct?
No, it actually was our first in Vegas.
Oh,
It was.
really?
So believe it or not, our first Bitcoin conference was in 2019 in a parking garage in San Francisco.
That's awesome.
That's the origin story.
I gotta tell you, when you
Yeah.
look back at that, that was only 2019. If you look back at it and you look where Bitcoin's at today, I'm telling you, exciting because a lot of people tell me, "Oh, Bitcoin, it's already at its top. It's there's no reason for me to get involved." And I'm like, if you just look at what they're doing to the U.S. dollar to debase it, you have to say to yourself, absolutely positively, I should own Bitcoin for my future
Yep.
success, for my kids' future success. And the
And
beauty now with Bitcoin is you don't have to worry about holding Bitcoin. You could hold Bitcoin, and if you need access to dollars, there are some very, I don't want to call them easy, but very friendly tools that allow you to borrow against Bitcoin and get US dollars like we've never seen before.
it's easy. It's easier than ever to borrow against Bitcoin. It's easier than ever if you have to sell your Bitcoin, you can. It's 24/7 liquidity. You don't need to own one full Bitcoin. I think that's another misnomer. For some reason, people
Well, it
try to
is nice to
price
have
it
that
out.
one full Bitcoin.
It's very nice, but you don't need to drop $115,000 in one transaction to go buy one Bitcoin. You could buy 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin for a fraction of a penny.
Well, it's
So,
funny. I tell friends all the time, just buy a little every day. Just put a little, if you got US dollars, just put a few in Bitcoin on a daily basis, make it a habit. At the end of the year, when you look back, you'll be like, wow, that was kind of cool.
exactly. Dollar cost average always helps the most when you're not looking at the price every day. You're just buying. I mean, it's the same thing with general investing, right? Time in the market beats timing in the market. Just stay in, don't get over your skis, don't over lever yourself. Obviously none of this is financial advice, but it's just, at the end of the day, be very respectful about the asset of where it is and the fact that it does have volatility. And for a lot of people that I talk to, for some reason, it's this 0-1 thing where it's like either I'm not going to own it or I'm going to own a lot of it. It's like, no, just buy a little bit, get off zero. And by just having a little bit, you'll start to actually do the work and the research and learn more about it because now you have some skin in the game. And so it's just getting past your ego and saying, okay, I'm going to buy a little bit of this and try to figure out what it is. And most people who do the 100 hours worth of research very rarely end up saying, okay, this is not for me. I'm going to sell it. People tend
Yeah.
to say, okay, I don't own enough of this.
Well, I think most people, when they own a little bit of Bitcoin, the one thing I always tell them is just forget about that money. Like that's money that you're just going to sock away for 5 years. And people that like look to trade Bitcoin, those are the ones that I think end up with they end up being shaken out of the market because the market can shake you out. Like I always tell people, listen, when it goes down 20 grand, like it did recently from 124 to one whatever, 104,
104, yeah,
105.
$20,000 wick.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people, listen, that's just Bitcoin on sale. They're having a Black Friday sale. It just
Right.
Bitcoin just has more Black Friday sales.
Well, so to put it in context, so that was on October 10th. It was a $19.5 billion crypto liquidation, which was so President Trump announced the tariffs in China, post-market close. The stock market was closed, but Bitcoin obviously is 24/7 as well as other crypto assets. And the market just completely tanked on that news. But it was by far the largest crypto liquidation ever. I think FTX liquidation was a fourth of that, and the COVID liquidation was even less. But if you were to put it in perspective, we had a $20,000 wick on Bitcoin going from 124 to 104. The whole Bitcoin market cap just 6, 7 years ago was like $20,000. So it's pretty incredible to see where we've gone, where you had a $20,000 wick. We basically recovered a lot of that already, today. And just 7 years ago, that was basically the whole Bitcoin market cap that would have been wiped out.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so
that
it
is
shows the
true.
growth has been. Yep.
Talk a little bit about the venture fund you guys have. I don't know too many people that actually even know about it what you guys are doing, but I'm pretty sure you guys are knee deep into some cool projects.
Yeah, so UTXO Management is the asset management arm of BTC Inc. And so to conceptualize our business, we have the conference business, we have the media magazine business, and then we have the asset management business. And so we run a hedge fund, long biased Bitcoin focused hedge fund, as well as a smaller venture fund. And so, really, with our hedge fund, we're targeting opportunities in the Bitcoin space, more liquid, and really the idea is to because the team has the experience, has the time in the market, has all of the network and connections, vis-a-vis the Bitcoin space, we can kind of find where the next level of infrastructure and growth the companies are going to come from within Bitcoin. And so that's really what we try to do is to outperform Bitcoin net of fees for our investors, not to be a replacement for Bitcoin, but to be a complement to investors' Bitcoin exposure.
Well, I've seen some of the returns you guys have done, and you didn't just start this. You've been around for a while. You guys have done some impressive stuff.
No, I appreciate that. No, we've been running the fund for about 6 years now, and have had a lot of really good success. And right now, a lot of our focus is on these Bitcoin treasury companies, like a strategy. But our thesis is that we're taking the strategy concept and really exporting it across the globe, where we think that every major capital market around the world will have its own macro strategy, its own Bitcoin treasury company. And we really think that these Bitcoin treasury companies are the 21st century financial services firms, right? They're the next level of financial services firms. It was interesting. We were in a client conversation meeting maybe 3, 4 months ago, and one of the individuals asked, why don't we have gold treasury companies? Like, why don't we have like a gold-backed treasury company? And our CIO said, well, we did. They were the original banks, right? Banks initially had gold. They lent credit off of that gold, and that's how banking initially was done. We've gone a far way away from that, right? Because now everything's fiat-based, dollar-based, all credit fueled. But initially, the OG gold treasury companies were the banks, and that's where we think Bitcoin is headed. There's going to be a lot of financial services, credit, everything else built off of Bitcoin being that collateral base. And we think it's the best collateral base for all the things we've already talked about on this call, right? The scarcity, the easy to transact, easy to move, easy to verify, all of that. And so we're not there yet, but we think over the next, 10, 20, 30 years, these are going to be some of the biggest companies in the world.
Well, it's funny. You see guys like Schiff, what's his name? Uh, I'm talking about the gold nut.
Oh, Peter
Peter
Schiff.
Schiff, yeah.
Mhm.
See them talk about gold and how valuable gold is. And when you compare gold to Bitcoin from a company standpoint, from a treasury standpoint, from a store of value standpoint, it's literally not even close.
It's
Like gold
inferior in
has to
every
be
regard.
centralized.
Mhm.
And when
It's
you don't when you
decentralized.
start realizing like Bitcoin has so many more advantages over gold simply because it's digital, it's secure, it's self-custody, it's private. All these things that you possibly would want in a store of value. It's really not even close.
It's not. I always tell people Bitcoin is 1/15th the value of gold today. It's at least a 15x better savings technology than gold.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the immediate opportunity. And so this is a really interesting stat. This is incredible. So gold has added about $10 trillion worth of market cap this year over the last 10 months. It's gone from a $20 trillion asset to roughly almost a $30 trillion asset today. That's basically five Bitcoin market caps in the span of 10 months. Bitcoin's roughly a little over $2 trillion
Yeah.
asset class. So the fact that people say we're late to Bitcoin, well, we just had a $20 trillion asset move to a $30 trillion asset purely off the store of value narrative. If we think Bitcoin also has that store of value narrative, a better store of value narrative, and you don't think it can't, 10x from here, 20x from here, whatever it is, it's just a matter of time in our opinion. And so the fact that people say, well, gold's doing great this year and Bitcoin's not, means Bitcoin says like, no, Bitcoin's going to catch up eventually as more and more people learn about what it actually is and what it represents and how it actually is a better store of value than gold. It's just a matter of time.
All right, so I got to ask you a couple of final questions. People let fear hold them back in life all the time from doing things that are great for their lives or great for themselves. They let fear of failure hold them back. How have you dealt with fear of failure in your life? You've done some big things, whether it's in Bitcoin or whether it's outside of Bitcoin. How have you dealt with dealing with fear of failure?
It's a good question. In a way, fear can hamper you, and it can prevent you from doing things. And the way I always put it in my head is like, look, yes, we could fail. Bitcoin could be worth nothing, right? If like something comes out of left field with the code or whatever, right? I think it's very, very low probability. But if you do fail, it's like, well, at the end of the day, if you're not either having failure or have the risk of failure, you're not living life to the fullest, right? You're living life safe. You're kind of floating in the wind. And it's like we have one shot at this, and if you're not trying to do your best in something or take risks or try to go for something that you truly believe in, then you're not fulfilling what you're put on this earth to do. And so um, yes, failure happens, and I think you can also learn from failure. Like if you're not failing in certain regards, then
I got news for you.
you're not
Failure is
taking
going to be
enough
your
risk. You're not
greatest
doing
teacher of
enough.
all time.
It's the best teacher of all time. Nothing teaches you more than going through a failed whatever, right? I failed many times throughout life on different things, right? Like making a basketball team or not making the top band, when I played the saxophone.
Oh, you
Things like
played the sax?
I did. Yeah, I actually double majored in school. So
Okay,
I
let's be honest. We got to see that at Bitcoin in April here in Vegas. I mean, you
yeah.
on stage pulling out the sax would be epic.
I'll talk to David Bailey about that to see if he can get me a slot to
I don't think people understand how really amazing the sax sounds when somebody's playing it just by themselves. Who was the greatest sax player of all time? I want to say Chuck Mangione, right?
he's up there. I mean, it's subjective. I mean, I'm a John Coltrane fan.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, it's when they play it, if you find some of their music, man, it's just amazing to watch the sax play by itself.
it is, yeah. It's what everyone always tell people is it's very easy to learn, very hard to master.
That is a good one. That is a great one.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
so leave people with one inspirational thought about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin represents freedom and self-sovereignty, and I think at the core of humanity and what humans desire and need, it's the freedom to have self-choice and to do what you think is best in this world. And I think Bitcoin represents that. Bitcoin represents um, the ability to take ownership for yourself. Um, and at the end of the day, people talk about the number, the price of Bitcoin going up, but it also represents the ability for people to lift themselves out of financial poverty across the world. And so I think people tend to focus very closely on can it go to 200K, a million, whatever. It's like, well, for the person in XYZ country who is going through 50% a year inflation in their currency, this offers them a lifeboat. And so Bitcoin is a lifeboat for everybody, but even to those in more developing countries, even more so. So I would just say that think of Bitcoin as a freedom tool, freedom money, digital capital that is really for the benefit of everybody.
I couldn't agree with you more. He is Loren Asmus, and this has been a great talk. We got to do this again sometime.
Love to, Chris.
Hey,
No,
by
it's
the
great
way,
meeting you,
I'm
Vegas.
gonna leak out something. I'm gonna leak out. I'm gonna say, how many Super Bowl commercials have you guys done in your history?
Zero.
How many?
We've done no Bitcoin or no Super Bowl commercials.
You've released no commercials during Super Bowl week, the best week ever to launch a commercial to promote your brand. None.
Not yet.
Not yet. Stay tuned. All right, Loren. Great chopping it up, man.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.